Boom. I believe we are live, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a while. We are back at the Bear Cave here. Got another little quick vacation trip with the family coming up soon as well. So I hope you all enjoying the family season. I guess it starts for most people in November, the first of the Thanksgiving a little bit. I'm just going to look at a bunch of charts today and kind of share some thoughts. It's getting real strange out there in the world. I'm sure some of you may have already noticed this. Don't even know what to make of some of it, but nonetheless, this is where we're at. So give me a thumbs up in the chat if everything's working. It's been a while since we've done a live stream, so I want to make sure that it is actually in fact working. And any questions or thoughts you guys have for today's chat as well, if you want to share that in the live stream, go ahead and do so, and I'll try to do my best to look at all of them here. Okay, so where are we going to start? I will start actually here on Twitter. This is my Twitter page. I'm a big fan of Twitter, especially now that Mr. Musk has taken it over. Although we could make some arguments around what free speech absolutism should look like. It seems like it's better than before. I don't know. Looks can be deceiving. We know this is a fact. But nonetheless, I thought this was quite funny. The Pentagon can't find $2.2 trillion. It's missing in their auditing. And this is for 2020. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I seem to remember that there was somewhere like a date of around 2001 where you saw something very similar to this, where all of a sudden, hey, the government can't account for some very large sum of money. Where is it gone? We don't know. Anyways, I like to post stuff like this on Twitter. It's a bit more comedic, I think, than most people like to understand. It is also full of hecklers, so you got to be able to do your best to parse through those. But also, I'm a big fan of the trending list. So before we go too far and dive in, the trending list is always interesting. It's always something like COVID vaccine and stop the shots. Whatever. I'm not recommendation on medical advice here, but this is like the constant Twitter trending section. I'm sure you guys see the same thing. I've logged into multiple accounts to see blank. They all always say the same thing. So Twitter's trending list is pretty interesting, but nonetheless, we're going to skip away from that. We're going to focus on the charts here. Okay, this is the dollar index. We had a pretty nice sharp fall so far, but during that time was the FTX scandal. I'm sure that's fraud, FTX fraud. Let's be allegedly. What? So this has been a big move. Let's see. We'll give this a thumbs down. Actually, this is probably more of a thumbs up occasion. Yay, the dollar went down. We're not really big fans of government-controlled money. This is the thing that we're really initially trying to bet against. Some of the other trending topics that are very hot and worthwhile looking at lately is the kind of future we're moving into if government has total control over money and identity and travel and all these other things that your lives so deeply enjoy the freedoms of following through with. So because of that, when people start to lose confidence in the dollar, we're stoked about that. But we have to remember there's a bigger story going on here. How much lower could we go, I think is the question. Now, there's a strong area of support that would come right to the top, obviously, pretty much horizontal. If we know from our trading ranges, this actually looks pretty similar to a reaccumulation range. But knowing that this is a reaccumulation range after a previous bottom, reaccumulation, we could actually be looking at the breakdown here as well. So we might see a trading range for the dollar come across and do something like this before breaking lower. It could go higher, although I don't see how. One of the very first comments in the comments section today at the very top was, what do you think about rumors of Xi and Saudi signing agreements for a Petro-Yuan and Saudi joining BRICS, both DXY and US stock market going to crash, end of the US empire? Now, again, the more macro part of this game says, okay, if someone were trying maybe to take over the world, maybe it's not too far-fetched or outlandish to think that there might be a group of individuals that are trying to take over the planet through coercion, and they think that what they have for the vision of the future is the best choice. This is their the road paved to hell with their good intentions. So it's not outlandish. We've actually seen conversations like this happen many times throughout society. So because of that, I'm not sure like a long bet on the dollar here over extended periods of time is a great one. They might already be at war. The United States may already be at war. Now, again, part of this comes through as a confidence plan. But if no one in the United States has in the government yet recognized that they're at war, I don't think that they're going to anytime soon, or at least the people that they've asserted themselves at war with are the wrong people. And at least that's what history would say has happened. The future is yet to be telling of its secrets so far, but nonetheless, the point of this is because the contextual depth of the macro story right now that's taking place. I think the easiest way to look at it is under the same light that we looked at Sam Bankman-Fried here, where there was a continual move to this is probably criminal and maybe at a really big scale. So let's assume that the fingernail of the criminal that got cut off, that's getting snipped right there, is the actual criminal, and maybe there's something a much bigger kind of mass and gravity that's taking place, and we see that in the Twitter trends. So I guess what I wanted to make a speculation here for was there's something very weird going on in the world of science and data. I've made a few videos that lean into this, and because of that, I'm having a hard time sussing out how humanity moves forward if it takes the wrong turn here. It's disastrous, I think, already what's happened. I was a little slow to recognize that you don't want to fall off into the, because it's just not fun to, oh, great, look at this answer here. But this is seemingly every day what is becoming more likely the truth, because it's just the simplest answer. The simplest answer for the reason why we're seeing all these draconian, tyrannical effects that may have to do with digital identity and money is because it's happening, right? So if that weren't the case, we would make a case for a conspiracy hypothesis. But it's now harder to disprove that it's not some giant conspiracy. That's where the burden of proof lay now. So we've stepped into a new realm, and I think most people are starting to recognize this in some way, shape, or form, that we've now stepped into the area where it's actually on the burden of the proof to try to prove that it's not a conspiracy. You try to explain to me in any logical reason why a bunch of government officials would say something like "Build Back Better," right? Why do you get this mockingbird type propaganda through multiple figures? And then you have another figure being like, yeah, we just inject these people into the cabinets. So I don't like to get too political, but I don't think this is political. I think this is criminal. That's what has been really hard to bridge into lately. So I've been saving this for a while because I don't know how to say that. Alleged criminality, right? That's all. I think that's the only thing the lawyers would have to say is just make sure you're not actually calling people frauds and criminals, because I don't know, but it looks that way. Maybe I'm not great enough at the legal conversation to understand what can constitute this high level conspiratorial fraud, but it appears to have taken place. So I don't know how to factor that in, on the long term, even potentially. There's some horrifying data that just is coming out month over month. So anyways, back into the dollar charts here. We could be in a real breaking point. A lot of people make the arguments of, we won't see. I'm not talking about the end of the world. I'm not talking about the end of the world. I think end of the empire. That's not a bad one. The end of a society, or maybe it could be all of the society too, right? This is all pinned on the value of something like the U.S. dollar having any value. It doesn't really exist. So we're in a war. That's what I'm going to say. We're in a war with allegedly criminals. So I don't suspect that the dollar is going to be able to break out into any new strengths here. I don't think it's going to find new confidence. I do believe you're going to see other single world control mechanisms try to take over. I think that's what's happening. I don't know who or how. Not going to make any guesses or assertions there. Some of it seems obvious, but maybe that's just the magician usually tries to convince you to look over at the wrong place when they're making their magic tricks. So I can't imagine that the things that they're trying to distract us with are even the things that are the most important thing to pay attention to. There's a bunch of things going on. So because of that, I'm not entirely confident in this system at all. I don't know where revolution starts and governments end and begin. I don't think they're necessarily correlated. At least in the past, they're not directly correlated. The fall of the civilization or the society or the empire seems largely to do with the faith and the interest of people being patriotic, whether it's to a religion or a flag or a scientific belief. They kind of all end the same. So I don't know how much farther into the future we can find confidence, but this is I guess for some level of interest, the U.S. is still like one of the very few places where that individual freedom of like the freedom to say whatever bullshit you want, and we won't ban or hurt or throw you in jail or throw you in a mental asylum for saying that stuff. Like those are really clear principles written by very young people. I think when they originally wrote the Constitution, they're like 20-something years old. So these kind of inherent freedoms and liberties, the United States is one of the last places that existed, and one of the first vestige points. Not the greatest. I mean, there's no the greatest, but it's done the best, I think, so far. So even though I'm not a big fan of the U.S. dollar, I do like where the U.S. had gotten to with their general republic. And so it's not to say that you got to throw everything out here. I think that if we are to have a resurgence or a renaissance of sorts, it's going to come from the United States, effectively, right? But it might not come from the same regime as we see the United States in its organization today, which is largely based around this U.S. dollar. So we could see a real capitulation here and a breakdown of this, unlike any time we've seen in the past. Black swans are basically impossible to measure, because that's the point. It's like we don't know when everything could break, but it could. And there's a lot of really weird stuff going on out there right now, way more than I've ever seen in the past, to a very disturbing degree. So that's my macro on the US dollar. Normally I would try to stay more focused on the charts and what the data is telling me, but sometimes it just feels like I had a good conversation with Cowboy on our Twitter Spaces with Function. We talked about the level of probability here is that we should remain confident in the United States, because it is the kind of the vestige of freedom that I'm a proponent of and a fan of. Is you should be able to be who you want to be and say whatever the stupid shit you want to say. Like I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you're not hurting people. That being said, this potential war that's where people are trying to take over nation states kind of in quiet. That's because that seems to be the simplest answer now. I don't see a simpler answer here, sadly. How do you factor that in? It's been very well manipulated so far. I suspect it could stay that way. So we are likely going to see a continuation pattern here, and then the dollar will hold for many years, because the paper currency will likely, actually the branding of the US dollar paper currency could probably withstand a huge firestorm of negative confidence. But I don't see how it breaks into new highs like 150 or 160. But if it does, we'll know very soon. I think we're going to see a trading range form right around here. But again, I guess I wanted to highlight through that last point that like, it's super weird out in the macro environment. Like I don't even know how to make sense of some of the macro conversations that are taking place right now. So there's that. Take a look at the S&P 500. This I think has a bit of an easier tell to where we're going, which could be basically a long ways down in all markets. I guess this is what they would call the Great Reset. We might be looking at the Great Reset. Yeah, that's what it is. That may be what we're looking at. We're right on the edge of the cliff of the Great Reset before they just can rug everybody, because the U.S. dollar, I guess that's point function. Aside from how much I appreciate the U.S. Constitution, the kind of the vouch for freedom of expression, like just even though they don't get it perfect, that's a good ambition. That's a good goal. Now here on the edge of the Great Reset, which is apparently who we might be dealing with and what they're trying to accomplish, we could come all the way back down. We've gone over this before. The U.S. Federal Reserve is its liabilities to asset sheet. It's non-existent, right? because the US dollar is no different than the FTT token. it's just shit that comes out of thin air that they prop up with all these other statistics. It's money magic. That's what it is. We have our techno money magic now, which we play around with on the internet. Here's why we keep investing in this space, because it's kind of sovereign. It's at the best of times sovereign techno money magic. Here we're dealing with something else. So this is always my favorite to share. Here we go. Compare the M2 monetary supply, and in the recent years, we've seen that pretty much the entire S&P 500 growth is related to the inflation of the U.S. dollar. If they were to call the liabilities of how much U.S. dollar debt is out there, I think because it's an enormous number, this would just absolutely tank all the markets, basically. Because where do the dollars come from? They come from the Federal Reserve, which just basically makes out of thin air. Now, and again, the majority of this is not in actual paper cash. They always try to ad hominem attack you for being like, oh, well, it's not printing dollars in actual paper. No, it's made up through these correlations of debt and how they lend that debt out. But nonetheless, this is where this kind of house of cards is hidden in between the inflation of the U.S. dollar and pretty much all other assets on the other side. Now, we could make arguments for assets on the other side having a real value. That's for damn sure. The houses, the businesses, the intellectual property, the people that work together, those things all have value. Now, on the other side of the trade, just thin air. It's just effectively, right? The U.S. dollar is effectively made up out of thin air, and we as a society have forgotten that. And this is one of the big important parts about why like Bitcoin is our North Star guiding light, and crypto in general, just the idea that, you know, you can spin up your own money and put it up with collateral. That's such a wonderful experience that people didn't have before. You know, it's like getting, for the first time, you could have a microphone. You're like, wow, this is amazing. I can record myself. I can listen to back. These are fantastic pieces of technology. And for the longest time, that tech, or the idea of how that stuff worked, was all held in the hands of very few people. It's the banking monopolies that have a pretty strong control over what the world might want to do, you would think, right? So, effectively, the world economy, yes, this is what it is. Okay, so even the simple answer kind of comes out when you're just looking at the idea in point blank form. So we're up against what we could come careening back down in everything if they start to call all of this back, right? Because that's where all of it is held. It's all uniquely held in this orange line and the relationship to the exterior assets, which people believe is on the other side. And they go hand in hand. But the orange line is not worth anything. We can make arguments for oil being worth something, or food. Those clearly have value. But what tell me, like, show me the simple answer for how the paper has value other than through violence and the ability to keep order through that violence, which is, again, I'm not arguing against police and governance and being able to maybe shoot things out of the sky like asteroids, but it doesn't. Okay, so because of this, I think that we could be right on the edge of their Great Reset. Why not? Just rug everybody. They can do the same thing that FTX just did. They're like, and it's gone. You're like, where did all the money go? No, it's just gone. Can you show us? Like, no, I don't know what happened because somebody else who did what? You're like, no, I don't know. That's likely what they're going to come up with. Like, and the new Bretton Woods will take place, and they'll have some new organization of who controls the money around the planet. So if they were telling us we were headed for a great reset, let's just assume that now. Let's assume the criminals are telling us what they're doing, kind of point blank range. It's the easiest way to get away with it. She's like, yeah, we told you guys. We told you we like put people into your governments and that we invite them to our parties, and that's okay, right? So they're getting away with it. They're getting away with the crime by doing it in front of you, apparently, which is just wild to see. So I'm not particularly confident in this. I would let's trust them. Let's assume that the Great Reset just goes all the way down. It's good because when you reset something, you don't like turn it off just a little bit. You turn it off all the fucking way, right? It's they didn't say the Great Power Down either. They just said the Great Reset. Let's hope everything goes to zero and then comes back up online. And I felt something like this, and this is the conversation with Cowboy I wanted to get into, is that there was a time in 2020 when oil went like negative. Well, let's see if we can find this. For those of you that remember this, I'd actually, I think, can we find it in just the oil index? Here we go. Okay, so we're going to look up oil. I wonder if we can find this. Oh, this is on Uniswap? I'm in crypto, that's why. Okay. Where's our iBath paid a crude oil? I don't think that's crude oil. And maybe it was just futures oil. Okay, let's check the WTI. Okay, so here we are, crude. Let's take the M2 supply off there. It's not going to help us any for this conversation. Okay, you can't see it in this chart because I think it was only in the futures. Here, oil went down to like $12 a barrel. And there was a moment when on the charts this actually showed up as as negative like $100. So there was a moment in 2020 where oil was negative $120. Now, for those of you that don't know, they're not actually going to pay you to take the oil. Oh, I see a bunch of your guys' questions are coming up in thoughts as well, but they were going to actually pay you to take the oil, right? So oil, you could never redeem the oil for negative $120. People weren't just going to pay you to take it. That's not how this worked. But that's how it showed up on the screen. And this is this implies to me that there's something very criminal going on where those numbers are not actually accounted for the same way FTX made its mistakes. We know this. FTX makes more sense at the broader, grander scale of like the US dollar. A lot of people still don't believe this, but it's exactly the same. And the US markets are exactly the same too. It's just air holding it up on the other side, confidence. Again, I think confidence is a good thing. We should have confidence in the like free markets and freedom of expression. Like those are awesome ideas. They make sense to me. But in light of that, when things go to like a negative $120, we have to know there's play in the system that allows for things that aren't actually happening. And this is why I made the video the other day about could Bitcoin go to $5,000. The price of Bitcoin could look like it went to zero if they just reset everything. You might see everything look like it goes to zero for a minute. That's how weird like when an animal gets cornered, they are very defensive, right? So if we know that the criminals may be cornered to some degree, at least in a few places, they're going to be lashing out, I would assume. So if oil went to a negative $120 price, at least on the screen somewhere, I would not going forward, I would not necessarily trust what we see on the screen. And this is kind of one of the assertions that Cowboy had also made, is like, it's been super easy to trade the S&P 500. So we'll actually go back here and continue our, before we go into the crypto thoughts, because again, I don't trust the price on the screen moving forward. That's my sentiment. It could just be synthetic tokens. Actually, there's another, that article we went over the other day as well. Just how much of this is fake? Tell me. Okay, where's the S&P 5? Well, that's not, although this is actually Axie did make a nice run the other day. That's not what we're going to look at. S&P 500. Yeah, the S&P 500 has been like just boom, 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 hitting this beautiful trend line. Finding bullish divergence off of this bottom. You could see this on the RSI. We went over this, both the MACD and the RSI had a bullish divergence taking place, which was nice to see. Shot us right back up to 410, which we thought would happen, and now we're in the potential dead zone. Okay, so they're generally here. This is where we're going to want to watch as a trading range, effectively. So this area now becomes critical, because let's assume that they're just going to great reset everything, right? Why would the price of anything stay up high? If you can crash the price of everything, why wouldn't you? So Maybe under that context, maybe the US dollar does go even higher. Like maybe that is the argument for the US dollar, and especially cash. Like I'm sure they'll find a way to try to coax everybody into a central bank digital currency of some kind here. But that's what it looks like. I'm going to assume that's what's going to happen here somewhere in the short future. Then let's not assume there's a bullish moment. Let's think now for a second, just for fun, that they're going to actually try to reset everything. And then maybe we could go all the way back down to 77 on the S&P 500. It's all fake money that they just printed into thin air. That's right. We just went over that. So Bitcoin, yes. Bitcoin, on the other hand, it does not have some of those downside negative consequences of being a state-controlled money. It also has very set parameters and rules within its ability to create itself through this hard-working process. Big fans of Bitcoin as kind of our North Star still. We've always said that, although I think that it'd be a massively understatement to say you'd be missing the point if you factored out every other cryptocurrency, because it's like, wait, that's the point. The point should be decentralization and choice, not, oh, you can only use this one. That's the wrong answer. The wrong answer is you can only use the one that we tell you. That's the wrong answer. The right answer is you can use whatever you want, and you can make mistakes by choosing the wrong one even. That should be the freedom of choice, I think, not like we regulate and only use this one thing. So effectively, even though Bitcoin is still our guiding light and North Star for our thesis here of sovereign free choice money. Sovereign free choice money means you should be able to choose anything. If you want to use the U token and you put Bitcoin up on one side of a market maker as collateral with the U token, cool. I don't see why not. How we regulate that, or how that's, I guess, where the bigger conversation comes in, is now you're witnessing regulators and perpetrators sitting together, potentially in the same room here in the very near future. We've fallen all the way to the bottom. We're actually, here we go. Let's look at, here we go. We've fallen all the way to the bottom for Bitcoin, but is that the bottom? That's what everyone's asking. I can't stress how important it is, in my own mind at least, what happens if they all of a sudden try to rug everybody. Sovereign free choice money could be worth like an infinite amount more because of how useful it is, right? Generators in the summertime when nobody needs them are a particular price, but all of a sudden, if you're in the middle of a storm and you've lost electricity, generators are way more expensive. You probably can't buy one. And that's the difference. This is an asset that is like a generator here. It's not just, oh, you can store value here. It has a value function that a lot of people overlook, which is that in times of distress of the money that you use, what do you have? We've seen this time and time again. Countries say, oh, you can only take around this much out. You can only do, now you can only take even less out. And now if their new call is, we're going to force you to use central bank digital currencies because you can't take your cash out any other way. Actually, I just saw an article of that happening, I believe, in Nigeria. So they're going this direction. We've now made the assumption that we're dealing with allegedly criminals. And because of that, they're not going to stop easily. So Bitcoin's price could appear to go all the way down to zero for all I know. But don't trust the screen. That's all I could tell you. So I'm trying to make an assertion, not that I think that Bitcoin's price or value is that low ever. I think that we're in such strange times over the next little while. Just don't be shocked by anything you see on the screen. I don't think you could ever buy it at that price from whatever screen you saw it on, but just be weary here. I would, keep everything off of exchanges in the future. This is all about self-sovereignty. This is what the entire conversation is about. The technology is fantastic for helping us maybe have that conversation, but that's what the conversation is about going forward, I believe. So let's look at some technicals. We've fallen into, here we go. We were watching some bullish divergence take place on the weekly between the RSI and the price here. So price falling downwards, RSI ending up higher. This is kind of a classic bullish divergence taking place. We could see a break to the upside. But if we can't get back above here, the price is going to drop lower. And these times, if they great reset us, Jesus, don't trust anything you see on the screen. The value of the dollars is what's not totally set yet. Let's see if they actually win this war or not. But ultimately, well, I guess, technically we would assume that they don't. But anyways, the point of this is, without getting too ridiculous, I don't trust what we're about to see over the next year or two. That's it. I don't trust any of their data anymore. I mean, if I can look back at the data and check it out now, I've got a pretty good feeling of what's going on. Like the Together trial is great. They're like, oh, they've manipulated all this data. How much of the data that we're getting right now is manipulated as well? Don't trust how low it could go. I think we could see weird price things take place. Make sure everything's off exchanges. Understand there's a conversation about sovereignty. And if they're going to great reset us, just I don't know, pick a side or something. Jeez, that sounds bad. No, don't do that. Be peaceful, be calm. I've never seen anything like this. Like, it's mind-boggling in the background. Like, the conversations that we've had over the last 2 years to get to this point are shocking to me. So, okay, we're going to do a group conversation. We're going to look at some of the chats. Again, I'm ultimately very bullish on the value. Like, the value proposition of decentralized sovereign money has never been fucking clearer, okay? Just let me say that. I don't care where the price goes. Even if it looks like it's going to negative $120 for Bitcoin, it's not possible. No, it's the same thing that happened with oil. We're getting fraudulent data, basically. I think the conversations went over with what FTX is doing with AMC, maybe backdooring tokens to companies to manipulate prices on the NASDAQ. Like, it's all happening. I'm sure of it now. And we knew that from things like the silver, COMEX, spot prices for gold. They've been able to heavily manipulate it with derivatives. But if that system cracks and start to try to suck all the money out, don't trust the prices you see on the screen. Okay, here we go. Oh, look at this. Okay, so now I can look at this screen, which is good. Yeah, there we go. Because now I can see the chat, which is nice. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay, well, actually, let's roll up to the top here pretty much. Can you give us your thoughts? Samurai Saint says, Shiba gonna moon due to Elon? No, don't. Again, at this point, let's see, where do I make the best argument here? I like Dogecoin. Yeah, that's what I'll say. I think it makes a potentially fantastic currency. I don't think it makes a great money by any means, but it seems to make a great currency for that particular economy. So why not? Shiba, though, I don't know. I don't know. I'd pick one animal over another. It's hard to say. I think it would be whatever was relevant. The reason we first bought Bitcoin is because we needed to use it because they were going to give us a discount. So if you all of a sudden get a discount for services, if you start using Y, then you're more likely to adopt because it has utility, right? So some of the early functions like BNB or what FTT was trying to do, which is, hey, here's a utility. We'll give you a discount by using this token. And that's not a bad model if you've got very strict control over the inflationary supply and where the liquidity is sitting, but really not a great model for most other things. So I wouldn't pick Shiba, but Doge I think has a deep standing memeology that could last a few decades more. Like I like Doge based off that meme interest. That currency is largely mimetic anyways. Okay, let's see. Something big is coming. Last full moon. Oh, I don't know the last full moon ever. I think we got a bunch more years here on this planet. I'm not concerned about that. I don't see how this con game where does this get better? If this is this con game is criminal, right? So I don't know. Let's see. Wow, finally a live stream. Yeah, it's been a while. We're back in Costa Rica here for a bit. UK will have a digital currency. Yeah, we are having. That's fun. We're in trouble with that one. I don't think central bank digital currencies are going to be the way to go. But so how quickly people walked into saying, "Yeah, I'll just shoot me up." I don't see how we get over that sentiment easily. Like there seems to be at least some burgeoning of truth starting to come through. Thanks to Twitter recently. I mean, Twitter is one of the most reliable sources of news out there, because at least, even though you get noise, you can tell what the truth is. Like, for instance, when Sam was like, "Oh, maybe he's flying to Argentina." Well, that could have been the truth, but it probably wasn't. And that was a fun story, but you didn't have to wait very long until you could verify, and then you find out that wasn't true. On Twitter as well. So I think that's important. I think it's a great story too, but people should be able to read all of those stories to understand how, when truth is unfolding, it's basically impossible to get it right. So what you need is a variation of things, a lot of which are often hypotheses, because that's how good journalism is done. You have to kind of fill in some gaps to understand why the story is taking place. So data is usually the best. That's why I like the best journalists just be like, "Well, here's the data. You make of this what you will." The government opened up a portal with CERN. Yeah, we're at this point, why not? It's just all pretty ridiculous. Sure, why not? Can we consider ourselves like a parody account? We're now actually a parody account, just to make sure we don't get in trouble for anything we do or say. We're just making jokes, friends. This is all for comedic sake and interpretation. This is so good. Nice. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the live stream. It's fun to be back and jam. How about just CBD? That's what we need more of. Yes, I would definitely rather have cash than central bank digital currencies. Those are my only two options. But if the Bitcoin, who knows? Let's assume that maybe they're going to reset it. And again, remember, reset goes to 0 to turn things back on. Like, there's a quick switch of the power off, basically. Although you do have softer resets now, right? They're aiming for a soft reset, one where it doesn't turn off all the way, but where it turns off a bunch of the numbers that they're no longer happy with keeping, which is like, hey, where did that $2 trillion go? Meh. We don't know. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Send us that $600 on Venmo, guys. That's what we need right now. It's crazy. Okay. Matthew Tidbit says, Tio, did you see the Bank of International Settlements warned there are at least $80 trillion worth of USD FX swap debt not on balance sheets, and that all comes due with the next 12 months? It's all a con game. They're running the exact same game as FTX. The US dollar is worthless. It's the thing on the other side of the collateral that's truly has no value. Like, it's just a belief in the value. And that could work because currency is mimetic. We've gone over this, but you need a much better control of it, where and who the inflation goes to. I wouldn't make an argument for inflation being entirely a bad thing, but it's where does the inflation of a currency supply go to? If the currency supply goes to fucking idiots, then that's a bad thing. Or maybe not just idiots, but like, let's say if the money goes to criminals, that's a really bad thing. Yeah, because then your inflationary supply is getting constantly funneled into black ops shit instead of, doing something useful for society. So that's probably a big deal. I'm not an argument. I don't think inflation is negative necessarily by itself. I think inflation is negative when it goes to the wrong people. You can grow an economy through inflation. You need, technically, for people. There's more people that you want to have more wealth. It's important, but that's different. It's a different conversation between money and currency. I think at the end of the day, currency, I think, naturally should be somewhat inflationary. Just where the inflation goes. So not entirely art, but they've got a ton of capital that's lost, basically. I don't know how they recover or how they make sense of this other than a reset. It's almost like they planned for it, right? They're like, hey, we lost a few trillion here and a few trillion there. Our case also adds to this as also the story of the Bank of International Settlements is possibly a shortage of 85 trillion liquidity. That's about all the money on Earth. Some serious problems going on at bank accounts suddenly frozen. FTX next. Yeah, this is what I think we might be witnessing. We might witness like the whole banking system freeze and lock up, like all around the world. You think you got money? You don't, unless you've got it in something that you can hold or a physical asset of some kind, because the entire other side of the trade is effectively worthless. Now, again, I think the underpinning of the U.S. itself, I'm not going to deem as worthless. But the U.S. paper dollar itself is technically worthless. I give a lot of credit to the U.S. economic and system for most of what it's done, not all of it. Again, inflation going into black ops budgets just always sounds like a bad idea, but here we are. So more printing then. That's hard to say, but maybe. You would want people to feel more comfortable, but apparently China doesn't give a shit about people feeling more comfortable. They're just locking them up and throwing them in quarantine camps like, it's straight to jail for everybody because you're a health concern. So I don't know. Maybe it's not about printing more money. Maybe it's about having less people or more controlled people. That would be my first guess. Because that's what it looks like. Right. Fuck. God, why is this? See, when the simplest answer becomes the truth, you're like, oh no, that's what's happening. It was easier before. Like there was, the conspiracy wasn't easy to tell. Like it was hidden. Now it's like, no, we're just going to upfront. We're like, here we are. Okay. Everyone stopped paying taxes at the same time. Yeah, that wouldn't make a difference for them. I mean, it would be a great argument, like against the government, but they wouldn't really care. They'd be like, we're going to print a bunch of money and then pay other people that money to come take it from all of you. Because that's so it wouldn't necessarily work. They can just create more of it. So that wouldn't work anymore. But that would have worked more in the past, maybe. I think that although the people do pay a lot in taxes, so if they just stopped, it would make a dent. That's for sure in the physical, but I don't think you pay cash. And I don't think you're paying your taxes in cash, bro. Yeah, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Okay, wow, a bunch of questions here. Stop those clicks, Tio, or figure them out, please. Oh, what's clicking and looping? Oh no. What are you guys saying? Why read from the top? Yeah, sorry, my bad. Stop those clicks, Tio, or figure them out, please. I don't know where the click was coming from. Oh, I see. There's a, yeah, okay, my bad. So there's a channel. Okay. How about that? Sorry about that. Okay, it stopped. My bad. This is what happens when we haven't live streamed in a while. Oh, y'all trying to tell me he's reading from the top. Shit, guys, I screwed that one up. Okay, we're back. No more annoying clicking sounds. The whole chat is just also all of me missing the click sounds. Okay, hold on. Why is there not a way to get the chat to show up on this screen that I'm looking at too? I don't understand. There's got to be a way to do this. I'm gonna figure that out in the next one so we can have a live screen view of the chat come up as well. Okay, there we go. Problem solved. Pardon me. Okay, so where should we go? Awesome. I'm glad you guys are all enjoying the live videos, even with the the little mistakes. Yeah, it's been a while for a live stream. We should we'll pull one off here. I got my one of my good friends and general contractors is showing up. We're gonna build a outdoor propane fire pit here soon, which is nice. Stoked for the summer season to show back up to watch the stars and have the fire pit all nice out. It'll be fantastic. Yes, all crypto troubles are exactly TradFi troubles. Yeah, it's pretty messed up out there. I don't know how we let's assume the Great Reset is actually their intention then. Oh yeah, nice. We love you too. Good. This okay. Everything's rolling back up. Oh, I wanted to here actually let's talk. Oh, what happened here? Oh, my other camera turned off. Well, we're gonna have to use this one for now. Yep. Okay, here we go. Let's roll like this. Okay, so one of the things last few things I want to talk about here was, well, first off, the AI stuff is just wild. This is fantastic. So this is an app called Lensa, and there was another one, OpenAI Chat GPT. I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, but it just goes to show, I think, how far. Lots of clicking going on. It's still clicking. I think you deserve a song. Okay. Yeah, song at the end. Check out Lensa and the Open. They do use your photos. I think you give them rights probably. I mean, I don't care. It's fine. Whatever. It's just a face. It's my face, but it's just a face. All that data is easy to capture anyways. Like I got 1,000 photos of me on the internet. It's not nothing new, but I thought it was amazing. Pretty impressive. I thought it looked like Leonardo DiCaprio on this one. Was pretty ridiculous. But what's fantastic here, and you can tell how often I'm just like, what the fuck? My eyes up like this, like, what the fuck is going on? That's what I think I realized. Like every moment of my life, I'm like, geez, what is going on the last 2 years? Like it's all the photos I have. There's no, so I thought it was fun to play around with, but it shows how quickly technology is going into this stage of decentralization. Is one of the arguments we made just technology as a decentralizing force in general. Not that all technology is decentralized, but technology is a decentralizing force. Like that's what it does. It puts up the position of creating a lower cost to entry. Now, each one of these photos, if I were to had to get someone to make them a few years ago on like Fiverr, well, actually Fiverr's probably one of the cheaper ones, but let's say a few of the other like a single individual artist might have cost me like $200. I think these were like $2.40 for 100 variations or something. And it was pretty impressive to see what it did. Like it's super artistic as well. There's a big leveling of the playing field that might come on the other side of the Great Reset as well, and this is something we've talked about. Whether it's their Great Reset or ours, I think is the kind of the culmination of the story that I don't yet understand. But if we were to have a renaissance of technology, we're able to move so far forward so fast. If you were to remove some of the, like say that black ops money, or that secret spend money, just stop all the secret spending that the government is doing in action, because it's $2.2 trillion or something that they've missed. They're like, man, we don't know. Like we know, we do actually know where it went. It went into secret fucking spending. That's what's because that's what happens when we don't know where it went. Now it's called secret spending, right? So because of this, we've actually made huge leaps and bounds in technology. I think there's a bunch of other stuff we'll see over the next few years that are basically, this is a renaissance of technology. We're living through a renaissance of technology, probably since around the last 15 years, just this massive, pervasive, extraordinarily fast sweep of technology coming into our society. So I think this is just another reflection of that taking place. Yeah, look, here we go. Climate scam. These are all the things that I love Twitter. And yes, that's probably true. It's probably what it is. Oh, yeah, there we go. The camera was turned off. Reverend Flashback says, by the way, Tio, it's off topic, sorry, but do you know where I can get reliable info on psychedelics, microdosing, therapy against depression? Great question. There are a lot of great podcasts that I've seen out there around the topic. I guess the first thing to note, not medical advice, but mushrooms are extraordinarily safe. Tryptamines in general, you can take a fucking huge amount of, and you won't die, which is great. The LD50 for them is like basically unattainable. There's some clearly downsides with like how the brain and mind might go. So you'd want to ask yourself questions like, does my brother have schizophrenia, or do I have other family members who have like gone totally lost? Because it does happen. It's not a high number of people. It's a rare event but it does happen. And for those people taking psychedelics, oh my God, don't do it. Even in small doses, just stay away. You're already psychedelic enough as it is, most likely. So barring that, I don't think you need too much more reliable information. Finding reliable sources of what you want to ingest is probably a better thing. I like hunting my own mushrooms, but ultimately, at least here in Costa Rica, they're not illegal. Same in Mexico. There's a few places where you can find cultures that do that. Like you can go sit with a Mexican shaman and eat psychedelic mushrooms with her or something. Still exists today, and that's what I did when I was much younger. I did ayahuasca with a traditional Shipibo shaman. Although we were in Guatemala, it was quite a fancy version of the normal ayahuasca treatments, I'm sure, but nonetheless, they still exist, and I think that's probably the better way to go. In terms of microdosing, for depression, I guess specifically, now that I'm honing in on the broad aspects of the answer, I guess depression is like a long-standing thing, right? People always feel depressed. People go through waves of how they feel about life. It's kind of normal, I think. And often you're dealing with something that you're not super stoked about. So dealing with depression first and foremost is the mushrooms will help fix directly, but also it takes a lot of work from the person. So even if you do microdosing, recognizing that you're working on just being a human, more of like, because I think when we call it something like, I'm depression, is you can lean into it being like not your fault or your problem. It somehow like separates you, but ultimately you can work on without it. I think the ice bath is a great way to go too. But yeah, a small dose of mushrooms is amazing. I absolutely love that. I've got chocolate psychedelic mushrooms in the fridge all the time for exactly that reason. Lensa is the app, Lensa. Nice. Oh, I also wanted to point out how awesome the new ledgers are, and just in general, like Ledger in general. I've owned Ledger for years now. What a great product! All the built-in DeFi stuff. Like this is. I just want to point out the proposition for decentralization of sovereignty of identity, finance, and governance has never been clearer. It's like the glimmering, shining potential solution staring us right in the face, it seems like. Yeah, I grow ayahuasca here. Yeah, you can do a lot of research, but effectively it's just about finding reliable resources for anything, I guess, people that you trust. That's why I like to go find them on my own. Like I just walk out and pick the psychedelic mushrooms myself. I've got ayahuasca growing here on the property. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it at that. This was a lot of fun. I'll start doing, now that we're back here for the next month, we'll do live streams all the way up until Christmas. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Today was just kind of a let's jump into it, see where we're at. I'm still so fucking mind melted by what I'm seeing it take place in society today. The only thing so I'm still trying to make sense of that. But things are fantastic. Let's deal with the Arcane Bear. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Did you like? I thought this was fun too. I've got this like new webcam because we're gonna go on a little trip, and I wanted to be able to do some live streams when we go as well. So this new webcam, like, oh, and one of you guys asked about music too, so I could probably do it. No, next one. We'll do a live stream again here soon. Thank you all for joining us too. The Arcade. We'll see you on the next one. Boom.